is the latest installment of the Iron Druid Chronicles. We're also pleased to have with us Robert Jackson Bennett, the Edgar Award-winning author of City of Blades, which is the latest installment of the Divine City series, and has been described as a triumphant return to the world of City of Stairs. So please help me in welcoming.
Hi.
Hi.
You didn't expect my voice to be this high, did you?
It's gotten lower since we last saw you.
I didn't expect you to do that either.
Yeah, I don't know what I'm ever going to do. We like to stand, or at least I do, because of my days as an English teacher. If I sat down, that meant that shenanigans would immediately ensue. Not that I think you guys are up to anything. But yeah, I just like to, because I can easily turn around and see everybody since we have folks kind of spread out all over the place. And thank you so much for coming. But, hey, is there anybody here that came down from Dallas?
Yep.
Oh my God. Okay, wait, hold on. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Okay, you guys all could have just skipped this because I'll be in Dallas February 20th.
We'll be there too. We'll be there too.
And not only myself, but it'll be do you know Charlene Harris and Rachel Kane and Jay Wells and Delilah S. Dawson all in the same place, February 20th in Garland, really, not Dallas. But yes, you know, Dallas-ish. And at the Barnes & Noble. And yeah, I'm sorry to make you drive all the way down here, but this is a cool bookstore.
Yeah.
This place is rad.
But it's worth saying, so there's 10 of them, and it's I-35, so Dallas-Dawson would be, what, 4 hours?
Yeah.
So that's 40 hours. This is a solid work week.
Thank you so much.
They could have gotten a salary for this, probably.
I'm so sorry, you guys. But yeah, I hope you come because that's going to be a lot of fun. We're going to have more of a sort of a panel kind of thing and talking about urban fantasy a little bit. But they also have tickets to come see us, I guess. But they're free. You just like show up and say, "Can I have a ticket?" In exactly that voice, please. Can I have a ticket? And then they'll give you a ticket, and that's basically your spot in line. So you know, if you go earlier to get a ticket, you just see us faster is all. So yeah, I hope to see some of you guys there if you can make it, because it's not just me, it's you know all of the awesome people. So Robert, I'm gonna talk with Robert a little bit about various fantasy things, and then we'll take some questions for you guys. If that's cool. And when we start doing our signing doodads, I want to let you all know right now that we allow photographs. You don't have to ask. And you could just, but if you could have your like camera ready, just to kind of make things go a tiny bit faster. But yeah, if you want to take a picture, we're happy to do that. Especially him, because I'm smiling. Look at that guy.
I would say that's all the girls.
Well, I wanted Robert to be here with me tonight because, first of all, his book just came out the same day mine did, but also I fell in love with his first book. I was just blown away by City of Stairs. He knows what he's doing. And it's just this wonderful slow burn of a novel, you know, that just gets hotter and hotter as you go until, you know, it's pretty much on fire at the end. And I was like, wow, I can't believe how awesome that was. And then the sequels.
Are you sure that's me?
Yeah. I was like, damn, that's hot. Yeah, it was really good. And so please, if you like epic fantasy at all, please try City of Stairs, which is his first one, and then of course City of Blades is the sequel, and some of you already know that, but yeah, he's good.
Thank you, Kevin. I appreciate it. Like I do, I have to talk about how I first met Kevin. It was at Lone Star Con in San Antonio. And I went downstairs to the bar, and there was this dude sitting at the end of a long table with what was basically a glass bucket of a margarita.
It's Texas, man. You gotta do it right.
It was like a parade float of a drink. And I think it was Sam took a picture of you holding it. And this photo is like a Renaissance painting. Have you seen those ones where they like map that out, how it works perfectly? It's so symmetrical. It feels imbued with meaning, where I was like, I met this guy last night, and I don't remember his name too good, but I can't stop looking at this photo. I'm hypnotized by this. And I became queerly obsessed with this photo. And finally, he was like, you know, this guy's on Twitter. You can't keep doing this, right? And that was how I came to know Kevin. He was forgiving of my weird obsession of his big margarita. He looks so happy. Hold this margarita. I don't think I've ever been happier holding something like that in my life. Even my newborn son, I was like, you know what? I feel like an inch above would be this big-ass margarita. It is worth saying that the kids section is over there, and they're going to get grown up really quick.
These were blood orange margaritas, which I'd never had before. And they were, for at least for me, they were absurdly tasty. And so I kept ordering them. And the reason I was there in the bar instead of, like, I don't know, doing professional things, was because they had left me out of all the programming. Like, they knew I was coming, and then they didn't have me on a single panel. So I was like, well, this was a waste except for these drinks. This was worth coming to Texas for. So I was there basically, and at the time I was writing the Star Wars book, so I was drinking a lot as I was writing Luke Skywalker, and it might show in the book, I don't know. And there you go. That's kind of what I was doing while I was there. But then, yeah, I get to meet. I met so many awesome writers at that particular con. It was a lot of fun. So
I'm told I did. I don't remember.
no, seriously, I'm like, who's that guy over there staring at me drinking?
Yeah.
And they're like, that's Robert Bennett.
That was Robert Bennett. Yeah.
And I'm like, okay. You know, I kind of nodded at you, and I think that's all the contact we had, and then we just kind of started talking on Twitter.
Yeah, and they threw that party, and I said I would come in a tuxedo, and someone said, well, now you have to do it. And I actually did show up in a tuxedo, and the party got out of hand, and I lost significant amounts of my tuxedo. So I have no idea what the hell happened to that thing.
Rider parties, man. They're fun. But I was going to ask a little serious kind of thing about, every writer approaches their craft differently. And by the way, all of them are equally valid as long as you get to the end, right? So I was wanting to talk a little bit about how you structure an epic, because I just got finished doing one. That's a new thing that'll come out next year. It's called The Plague of Giants. And I just turned it into my editor on December 31st. And I think she's waiting until after this tour is done to give me my notes back. Don't worry about your next story until you finish promoting this one, kind of thing. An epic is a new thing for me. It's kind of a mountain I wanted to climb, and I had a great time. With the change, it's a completely different world from the urban fantasy of Atticus and Oberon. So I wanted to talk. I loved his structure. So I wanted to ask him, how do you approach the structure, or is it even something you even think about, or are you thinking about character, or are you thinking about plot? What are you doing when you're kind of planning an epic?
Well, I'm cheap. And the structure of story that I stole from is a mystery story in which there is a question, and then you have to pursue trying to figure out what that question is, and as you pursue it becomes a larger and larger question. So it starts out with who is this person and what did they die, to what did they die for, what were they doing, what's actually happening in the city. And when I go at an epic, it comes with a lot of baggage. There's a lot of world building, there's a lot of history, there's a lot of stuff going on. And the question really becomes, what do you include and what don't you include? And, for example, a lot of epics, it's like, what sort of shoes are they wearing? What's on their coins? How do they eat pears? And you're like, this is really not going anywhere. I love pears as much as the next guy, but it doesn't really concern me that some eat them on the skinny end, some eat them on the fat end. I don't really want to spend 70 pages on that. So the way that I think about kind of doing the world building with that structure is I think about the questions that the book itself is asking. And because I think of my books as trying to take a large question and then try to figure out how Robert feels about it. For Stairs, the book...
is Robert somebody else besides you? I'm just checking.
He's my
there's
puppet
a third person.
who looks exactly like me and has a slightly higher-pitched voice. And also has a deep hatred of door-to-door salesmen who just keep vanishing. No. He doesn't hate them, he loves them. That's why he keeps capturing them. I'm getting kind of off on a tangent here.
Sorry.
And the question in Stairs is, can we change as a society, and do we want to change? And a lot of stuff about the past and how the past affects what we do currently. And so when I wrote about the story structure set in Stairs, everything that happens in it, no matter how small, needs to address that question in some fashion. It can be very indirect, it can be kind of parallel, But I always wanted to kind of be about that subject because I do think of a book as a conversation with the reader. I don't want to ever have someone be like, like, here's what I'm going through with my dad. And be like, well, I like dogs a lot. I love dogs. That's not what I was talking about. I was talking about something serious with my dad, man. And people get upset. So I try and frame my books in that sort of a fashion. I don't know. Does that make any sense? I don't know.
It does. I mean, I wanted to know. I didn't know it was based off a mystery question. That's kind of fascinating because
mystery plot's the cheapest plot you could do.
Right. But I mean, what a cool way to approach the epic, because a lot of folks think, well, you have to have a quest, and there must be a MacGuffin, and there must be a Dark Lord and a prophecy, and I mean all of these kinds of things that are sort of I guess they're tropes or cliches or both, and
they're tropes if they work.
Yeah. And so people think of that when they think of epic fantasy, but it doesn't necessarily have to be that way. So I was fascinated by your book because it was kind of different than the others that I had read, and I loved it. So I wanted to see, well, how did you get to that place? So
well, I think that all the Harry Potter novels really function as a mystery, and they're highly structured. At every holiday, something goes down, and they got to ask more questions. How did this kid die? I'm like, your Christmas was different from mine. I've never had this happen.
Well, Tim, here comes Easter.
Yeah, a lot
Who's
of stuff.
next?
And Grandma, but yeah, I mean, there's this highly structured series of questions of just something strange happening at the sortie, and now it's Halloween, and someone's dead, and you're like, oh, goodness gracious, that's very interesting. That's ideally what you're saying. No one's thinking about, these children are an incredible harm. And no one's asking that question. But, yeah, I mean, it's that sort of structured reveal of the larger questions. With the largest question being, why am I reading this book?
Well, cool. Yeah, I love the Harry Potter stuff too for that reason. I couldn't wait to see who died next and how horribly. Because there's some pretty creative, ways to get squished in Harry Potter. But yeah, for my particular epic, I didn't approach it as a mystery, more as I was looking at the consequences of a resource war, and how wars in general always change the societies to which they happen. Nothing ever returns back to the way it was. So you can't go back to where you were, because obviously, first of all, a lot of people are dead. But second, you can't go back because the economy has necessarily been affected, and so many other things. So you have to figure out where you're going to go from here. And that question is just as important as how do I survive the war, what happens after it, and where do we go next. So my particular trilogy is called The Seven Kennings, and the first book is The Plague of Giants, and we have a war started by two different races of giants, actually, that the people on this one continent did not really know about, and they just suddenly invade, but both are for different ecological reasons, and so since we're having so many issues of with our climate and so on, and there are going to be resource wars. Hey, we've already had them in one way or another. Since it's resources that people are all fighting over, how is that going to play out on on a different world with a slightly different set of consequences? How do we figure out where to go from here? So that kind of thing interested me, in how people would deal with war when it arrived. Not because they were ever expecting it; they were at peace, right? And nobody ever really expects, well, I'm going to be smack dab in the middle of something really soon. But when it happens, how are you going to deal with it? So that's kind of what I was approaching in my book.
One of the things that I really like about your Iron Druid series is that there's a type of fantasy that's called the kitchen sink, which everything you've ever heard of is absolutely true. And one of the things that I like about it is that reading this book is kind of like when you first meet a rock star and you find out that, yeah, he actually does know all the other rock stars ever. And you're like, even Mick Jagger's like, oh, yeah, I know Mick Jagger. I know that guy. I had to tow his car one time in Sheboygan. And you're like, what? That's crazy. I mean, he's brushed up against every single myth that seems to be out there. You got werewolves, you've got vampires, you've got Thor, who's apparently the dick. And it's just everything. But I'm really curious about which ones you don't include. Because every once in a while I'm waiting on Jesus to show up.
Well, book 3 and book 7, yeah.
Jeez, guys.
He's only read the first one. But yeah, Virgin Mary is in the second book, and then he's like, hey, can you...
This is the best thing I've ever heard. You got some guts. All right.
Why, yes, I do. No, the thing is about, I did realize that kind of at the beginning of the whole thing that I could never do third person for this, because if I did, where does it end with when you consider all of the different mythologies or religions? You have to be careful about, by the way, which one you use, because one person's mythology is another person's religion, right? Yeah. So when you're going to start, including all these different pantheons, if you're going in third person, then you might wind up to, get to this point where it's information overload, and now, well, while Jesus was doing this, over here, Krishna, wow. and you have to, keep up with everything. But just by simply turning it into a first-person story, where we only interact with what the gods are up to when our narrator interacts with them, well, that simplifies things a little bit. So I won't be including all of the world's pantheons in the series just because I can't possibly. And I have to kind of, necessarily begin with the Tuatha his own pantheon, and then it's sort of European, but then it does branch out from there. And I'm really enjoying the past few books getting out of just the European stuff and starting to explore some others. So, and in this one, I had a great time actually when I was at. I found out some stuff when I went to Europe. I was talking.
Like about yourself as a person?
I went by there. I went out there at the invitation of my Polish publisher. I've been in Poland. Because of the Polish witches, actually. I was kind of surprised by it at first, and they told me nobody ever talks about us. It's always the Germans. It's always everybody else. Nobody gives a damn about the Poles. They're like, you're so nice to like, acknowledge our existence, and not only that, but make us badasses, So I mean, they love it. They seriously, and they're seriously nice. I mean, I went to all these different countries during that trip, and I love Poland the most. Like, nobody thinks of it as a tourist destination. Seriously, the nicest people. They're not used to tourists. So they're like, you came to our country, and you don't have relatives here. You wanted to, wow, welcome. They're so excited to see you. So. But they were talking to me about some nightmare creatures that I had never heard of. And when I got back, I started to look them up online. And there's like this tiny little, one of those little Wikipedia entries. And like, this is something from Polish mythology. It's like, thanks. I knew that, but you can't really find out much more about them. But over there, they're called Nocnica. So it's in there. And I'm not going to spoil or nothing, but. It creeped me out. I was like, that's some damn spooky shit. It's like, I know, man. I lost, the fellow his name was Gregor, and he was taking me around Warsaw, and he was telling me about this stuff, and he says, yeah, I woke up screaming a few nights over that idea, because my parents told me to scare the crap out of me, and it worked. So I love learning about the new stuff, and when I run across it, I usually try to find somebody from that culture to talk about with it, so that because what you see online or wherever you can't necessarily depend on it, So, but the people from the culture can tell you, yeah, that's right, or no, it's a little bit more nuanced or something like that.
Why did you pick Irish mythology as the primary one to start with? Is it just because you didn't want anybody trying to copy you and just trying to spell the same words?
That was it.
I mean, you can spell the Viking stuff, everybody knows that.
Yeah.
There's so many consonants. It's crazy.
Yeah, they have the sounds in their language, the Gaelic language, for V and W, but they never use those letters. So they use combinations of B, H, and, all the different, things with an H after it, MH and all that to represent V and W. So that's part of the reason the spelling is so weird to us. But I stuck with the Irish stuff for two reasons. One, I got some Irish heritage and I was kind of interested in it. And second, nobody else was really writing about it. Most of the Irish stuff that you saw was either, well, here's the Morrigan and she's scary, or maybe here's Breed, and that was kind of, or the Wild Hunt, that was the other one that you often used to see. But that was more specifically the continental sort of Celtics rather than specifically Irish. So no, since nobody was really exploring the Irish stuff, I thought, well, this is kind of interesting and has potential. And I saw that the Irish Druids were the ones who kind of lasted the longest because the Romans never got to them. And once I got into the mythology, I saw that there was reasons for why Atticus might actually be alive, or somebody like him be alive today. So that was fabulous. There was 3 or 4 different ways that somebody could have a long life in Irish mythology. So.
Speaking of the Morrigan,
yeah.
If you had to cosplay as one of your female characters,
I would not look like her.
This is a 2-part question. Which one would you like to be, and which one do you think you could pull off?
Well, step 1, I would need to shave. And get a wig. But I suppose, I admire Granuaile as, she's us, basically. Like, if one of us in our modern day were to run across this world of magic and to be confronted with it and try to make it something that we can control, how would that affect you as a human being? And that's what I'm really exploring with her. I know you don't know that yet in the first book, because she's just a barmaid in the first book. But yeah, so later on she becomes a more and more important character as the series progresses, and until she's got her, point of view. And that's very purposeful on my part, because Atticus he knows all this stuff already, but what happens to one of us when we get exposed to that power? And that's why I'm kind of fascinated with her. And I sort of had some red stuff going on. Maybe I could pull off Granuaile. Maybe. I don't know. I'm not as much of a badass as she is. But yeah, she's my favorite.
I want to be the dog.
Wait, the poodle or Oberon?
It depends on how much champagne I have.
All right, good. That's great. Because now, I'm thinking of the curly hair and stuff. All right. Poodles, man.
Yeah, poodles. Terribly inbred. I have a story about poodles if you want to hear it, and you don't.
Okay. I'll trust you. I was going to ask you, what are you working on right now? Is it the 3rd book, or are you working on something else?
Right, it's the 3rd book. So one of the things about my books is each installment stars a different character. The first one is Shara, the second one is Mulagash, and the 3rd one is everyone's favorite, Sigrud. Who
really
is, yeah.
Oh my God!
Yeah. Yeah, he's the large murdering machine with a lot of problems. A lot of people were like, why don't you put him in the second one? He'd be awesome. And I was like, well, I think for a main character to work, they have to have a lot of doubt. They have to be concerned about something, or at least uncertain about something. They have to have doubt to a certain degree, and there needs to be, once again, a question in the book that they're not sure how to answer about themselves or about the world or whatever. And Sigurd doesn't have a lot of questions. And got a lot of doubt. And so I realized at the end of the first book, I was like, he actually probably wouldn't be that good. It'd be like a show with Ron Swanson, as the main character. Where Ron just takes care of business and goes home and stares at a blank wall and drinks scotch. He doesn't have a lot of concerns. I actually went with General Mulagash as the second character. What's actually kind of funny about her was that she was, in the first book, she was meant to be a man. When I first wrote her, she was meant to be a character that Shara, who's extremely clever, would dupe and trick into doing things. And I was like, you know what? It's kind of tropey. I mean, like the dumb man, old man character, not really knowing what's going on. And then suddenly I was like, what if we make her a middle-aged woman who does not suffer fools well, and is highly competent, and is unwilling to put up with your crap? And once I wrote that, I was like, I like this character. And so when they asked for a sequel, I hadn't really thought about it a whole lot, and I kind of had to cast around for a bit for a story to write. And I came up with one, and my heart really wasn't in it. There was a part where she just kind of showed up, and I was writing the outline. And when she was on the page, I was like, I'm enjoying myself. I like this more. I like seeing her yell at people. And I was like, you know what, why don't we just make her the main character? So if you like seeing people get yelled at, I don't know, for fetish reasons, this is just stuff you like, then this is really the book for you. She has one arm, she's 54 years old, and so in a lot of ways there's a lot of books out there with a lot of fantasy stuff they're about 15 to maybe 17. And it was really fun to write someone who's like been around and has no pretensions about the world. And that was hugely fun to write. And so her and Sigrud at the City of War, drinking and getting up to problems.
Yeah.
Kind of like this, yeah.
That's good. I can't wait to see the new one.
Yeah.
When is it? I mean, when can I have it?
You can have it right now, man.
No, the third book.
Oh, the third one.
Yeah.
Well, I was like, it's
I've
like
already
right
read that.
there.
I got it.
I was like, wait a minute. Yeah. But no, I'm about a third of the way through the editing process. It's emotional, I'll put it that way. But there's like, at some point I was like, all right, there's got to be a quota on explosions. There's just too many. And like, certain people were like, the second book Secret doesn't kick a lot of ass. And I was like, well, in the third one, you mean, it's like 10 pages in, and there's like rivers of blood. Yeah. People should be pretty pleased.
Okay, good. I can't wait. Stuff I'm working on at the moment is a novella told from Oberon's point of view. It's called, it may or may not be a little spin-off series. It's up to you. But it's called The Purloined Poodle. The working title for the series part is Oberon's Meaty Mysteries. So this will be the first one where, because Owen has started to watch mysteries, he started to watch them too, and then he wants to be a detective, and so, he convinces Atticus that, we should investigate some crimes that are happening locally. And, so... See, the thing is about Oberon's not Scooby-Doo at all. Scooby-Doo is the biggest coward ever. Let's run! And Oberon's like, let's kick ass. And then have sausage.
I'm really excited for someone to be like, so you hung out with Kevin? And I'm like, yeah. They're like, what does he write? Like, well, he writes a series about a mystery-solving talking dog.
But different. So yeah, if you guys like it, yeah, I'll write more. But I'm just having fun at the moment doing that, and then I have some short stories to do that I've always kind of wanted to get to, but I couldn't because I had the big books. So I have Atticus. He's alluded to it in several places about raiding the library at Alexandria, but I actually want to write that short story. And then I want to write one about Atticus and the gold rush in San Francisco in 1849. And then I also have one about Flittish and Perun in London, where Perun is the narrator. No, it's going to be a good time. Trust me. They run into some things where... yeah, I see you might have already read some of the book. They basically go into London because of events that happened in Staked, and Flittish is like, we're going shopping. And so they go to London, and they're going to this place, and they find this place that's called a Cuddle Dungeon. And then hijinks ensue, and you'll just have to wait.
Bring the thunder.
Yeah, so... That's kind of what I want to do, and then after that I'll get into the ninth book, and that will be out, however, after the epic fantasy comes out. So you do have a little bit of a wait, but you will have the novella and the short stories in between to kind of tide you over, and hopefully you'll like the epic too. So that's what we're up to. If you guys have questions for us about writing or, I don't know, snacks, yeah, please, go ahead.
I really appreciate the fact that you obviously do a lot of research in your books. Yeah. And I was wondering if it would be possible for you to recommend on your website some of the books that you use as resource material, like on Slavic paganism and the Polish poets.
Okay. Since I'm kind of an English teacher and all that good stuff, I always like to go to primary sources. And the easiest way to find them, ironically, is through Wikipedia. You just ignore the article, and you just go down to the bottom where all of the bibliography is, because they actually, one of the ways in which Wikipedia is improved is that they require that now. if you're going to write an article, we want to see your sources, and here are the primary sources. Here's a link to it. Click, click, click. So that's what I do. And to find the Irish stuff, you look up Tuatha De Danann, you go down to the bottom, and that's how I found the old Irish myths. They're Trinity University in Dublin has the mythological cycle, the Finian cycle, all that stuff, translated from the old Irish into English, and it's sitting side by side on the screen. So you got the old Irish over here, which just looks like a bunch of scribbles and calligraphy, right? The monks were doing. Like, damn it, carpal tunnel before they knew what it was. And then on the other side is the English translation of it. So I read those for the Tuatha De Danann stuff. And then the Prose Edda is online and translated for the Norse stuff and so on. To get the stuff from the Navajo, the Dene, I had to. There's some anthropological works that you can search out. Because I actually note it in the acknowledgments at the end, in Tricked at the end. I list the name of the book I used as a primary source, but then I also had a student and who was willing to talk to me about Coyote, and then she also let me talk to her parents and her grandparents. I mean, so it was, that was awesome. And then I also went out to the Navajo Nation and did scouting for the actual locations because I'm kind of a stickler about location stuff. And on the cover of Tricked, I took a picture of the Navajo Nation of the sandstone area where everything was going down, and they used it on the cover. But it's like silhouetted, and it's like behind Atticus's right shoulder. It's kind of over on the left, and then they stuck one of those little blurbs on top of it so you can't even see it. But like, I totally took that picture. I'm on the cover. That was totally worth going up there.
Yeah, those words are just hanging out there.
Yeah.
Actually, no one knows where they came from.
Yeah. Just do it. So yeah, that's kind of what I do. And for my sources, I always try to go to primary stuff. So I never thought of putting it online. So yeah.
Where did you get the idea of Atticus? Like, what his character and his like attitude and like who's his inspiration? Who's the inspiration for the character?
Okay. This is going to be something that Robert can probably speak to too. That not Atticus necessarily, but the idea that where this came from and so on. I was writing to entertain myself. I was just telling the story I wanted to tell, and I didn't think anybody else would want to read it because actually the writer who doesn't feel this I would be scared of, but almost every writer would feels that what they're doing is worthless and they're very insecure about it and doesn't think that anybody's going to like it. And I didn't. When I got done with Hounded, I wrote it to entertain myself, and I had some laughs along the way, and I was having a good time. But I didn't really think anybody would want to read this stuff, and I wasn't even going to send it out. But then my wife read it, and she's like, no, you will send this to an agent now. Or 5, or how many it takes. You were going to send this because this is better than what I'm usually reading. So I'm like, all right. But I don't want you to be mad at me. I'll do this. So then I sent it out, and then I got an agent, and wow, it sold. And I'm like, that was unexpected. So, but again, I don't know that I was interested again in the mythology stuff, and I was also interested in the idea. Part of this also was a genesis because my father was in ill health at the time, and I was thinking very much about, gosh, wouldn't it be nice if we could live a little bit longer and spend a little bit more time with the people we love. And because of that, I thought, well, what if that really happened? And you had somebody who lived a very long time, and what would their issues be? And because I think if you live for 2,000 years and everybody else keeps dying, you might start caring about the people who are here for just a little while, and you would lose your humanity. So that is why, and I see that a lot of times in the vampire mythology. And so I thought, well, how would Atticus avoid becoming an inhuman monster where all the vampires, can't avoid that, seemingly. And so that's where Oberon came in. The very serious purpose of Oberon is to keep Atticus grounded in the present because dogs live in the present. They don't let you live in the past. They don't let you worry about the future. They're like, you need to rub my belly right now. Or give me a snack or something, So it's always keeping you right there, and that's kind of where that all came from. Very long-winded answer, I'm sorry. But I was going to ask, do you feel that sort of, I don't know, maybe it's just me, but I think a lot of writers talk about being insecure about what they're doing, what they're creating.
I'm pretty insecure about this answer.
Yeah.
Yeah, like there's times where things just kind of feel right, and like you're never gonna not be insecure, but you're like, I'm willing to be this kind of insecure in front of people. Is the sort of way that I think of it, where there's an idea that you have that you're like, this is solid enough that I'm willing to risk being stupid for. There's all sorts of stupid stories that I don't try out and put in front of people because I have a brain. And I know not to do that. But I remember, like, for stairs, I was at home and I was cleaning. I get almost all my good ideas when I'm cleaning. And I'm not going to say that I do a good job of cleaning, but I like cleaning because that actually provides me with some ideas. And I was vacuuming. And I just read this book called Dark Star by Anton Furst. I don't know if y'all have ever heard of it. But it's a spy story from the Second World War that's told from the point of view of a Soviet spy. It's very unusual. Most spies are, hot English dudes or hot American dudes or hot French dudes. But this was a Jewish guy from the Soviet Union who was there in Poland spying on the Germans. And it was this really interesting mix about how the Polish people at the time were not prepared for modern warfare. And he talks a lot about how they looked more like knights. And how it was these grand old days that were obviously about to get mowed down. And I had that in my brain, and I don't know, I was vacuuming, and Prisoner of Zinda was on TV, which is a 1937 film about a tiny Eastern European kingdom where an Englishman goes on holiday and happens to look exactly like the king, which leads to so many hijinks. But it was a really fun look at these very fragmented Eastern European countries. And I was vacuuming, and I thought, man, it must suck to have to be a diplomat and go to these tiny little kingdoms with these old histories and have to deal with other crap. And then suddenly I was like, that's interesting. Let's think about that some more. And I was, all right, so we got a diplomat go in these countries. What are they like? And I was like, well, it's Eastern European. It's a bunch of dudes in furs shooting elk all day. What would clash with that? And I was like, a Southeast Asian woman who's highly educated. That'd be really interesting. And so I had this idea for a main character who would sit across from these tough old dudes who wanted to talk at the time. And George Smiley is one of my favorite protagonists. I don't know if y'all know him from Tinker Tailor. And she was, and I wanted to draw from that, someone who was quietly waiting for you to stop talking, because I already know everything you're saying. And so I thought to myself, okay, so all these dudes hate her because they can't like her. That's not a story. So I was like, why do they hate her? And so suddenly I was vacuuming, and I remember exactly the part of my house I was at.
What was on the carpet?
And I probably did a real bad job. But I had this idea of just like, well, because her country killed all of their gods. And I was like, oh, all right. And 2 years later, I wrote City of Stairs. And but that was one of those ideas where I was like, all right, this seems like it's got legs. Let's see if someone will pay me. Yeah.
See, and that's interesting because that's kind of how I was asking questions of myself. Why would a druid be alive today? Oh, in Irish mythology, there's all these different ways that you can extend your life. Manannán MacLear's magic bacon, etc. So there's all this stuff that you can do. So I kept finding ways, for it, to answer these questions that I would ask myself. But it's all, geared around a character. You start with the character and say, well, why is this what's their conflict? What's going on? Why would we care? And once you start answering those questions, your book starts taking shape, and kind of go from there. So, yeah, yes, sir.
It's a question for both.
Yeah.
Which author do you go back to reread more than 5 times?
Do you want to go first?
I don't do that anymore. I can't. Because I just don't have time. I keep getting people saying, hey, read this next, and tell us it was cool. So I don't have time to reread as much as I used to. But when I was a kid, Anne McCaffrey. Yeah. The Dragon Singer.
Dragon Riders.
I didn't do the Dragon Riders. I loved the Harper Hall trilogy. I loved that thing for whatever reason. I liked it more than the Dragon Riders myself. That's just me. But I read that stuff over and over again. So that was me.
Yeah, I'm the same way in that, like, I do think that once you start writing, like we'd like to stop reading. You should take up writing. Because suddenly you're going to be like, yeah, I don't know, I've been doing this all day. But for me, it's Susanna Clarke with Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell, which was one of the most impressive pieces of world building I've ever read. And if we have time at the end, maybe I'll tell you about how it got me engaged. It was the
Was
suavest.
it magical?
Do you want to hear it?
Yes!
All right. So I knew I was going to get engaged to my wife, and I took her to Spain. And I hid the engagement ring and a pair of bright red Argyle socks that never left my side. And so we're in Spain. Can't really watch TV at night because it's in some crazy moon language. And so she would say, can you just read me from your book? I mean, like, I don't want you to like not read because you're waiting on me, but just read me like 1 or 2 chapters. So I said, okay. So the first 2 nights go by, and then on the third night, on the third day, I'm like, this is the day that I'm going to propose to you. This is the one, and it pours rain. It's like cold. It's really cold in Barcelona, and I never get the chance. Never seen it. It's always us like panting and sweating in like some doorway, and it never really works out. And so we're going back to the hostel, which is sketchy. It's a sketchy hostel. And I'm like, all right, I'm just going to do the champagne thing. And I'm going to put it in her cup, and we're going to drink some champagne, and then that'll be that. So we swing by the gas station. All the champagne is warm. And I was like, all right, maybe let's do some red wine. So I have to buy the red wine, and the guy, and like I realized I don't have a corkscrew. I have to ask this guy, who I think was from Thailand, to uncork the wine for me. So we go back to the room, and we shower off because it's like crazy cold, and the shower is like a glass coffin. Like this is how I had to get the soap off the floor. It was Cirque du Soleil stuff. While she is in the shower, I pour her a cup of wine. I'm about to put the ring in. I'm like, should I put jewelry in red wine? It's like really good. And so I hid it in a stack of her cookies because I figured she would eat 1 cookie and then 2 cookies, and then she would see the ring. So she comes out of her shower and says, all right, it's time we go to bed. Why don't you read for me from the book? So I open it up, and it's the section in which the young Mr. Strange wants to propose to a woman and isn't sure how to do it. And I've never read this book before. And I was like, holy crap. All right. So I'm reading her about this guy wanting to get engaged. And I know that she's eating this stack of cookies. I can see it out of the corner of my eye. So she eats 1 cookie. She eats 2 cookies. She eats 3 cookies. She eats 4 cookies. She eats 5 cookies. And I'm sitting here, I'm all like, all right. So like, I'm starting to wonder as I'm reading this, I'm like, did she eat the ring? Wouldn't she notice if she ate the ring? It's like a diamond. Anyway, she stops eating cookies and is just staring off into space and puts it on the bed. And like, I'm like reading it, I'll like kind of look over, and the ring is sitting in the wrapper. She just has not noticed. There's a damn ring in the cookies. So I get done with the book, and with that chapter where he finally does propose, and I was like, you know what? I kind of know some magic. And she was like, what? And I was like, check this out. And so I wave my hand over the stack of cookies, and I pound 3 times in the bed, and the ring goes, whoop. It was like, and I was like, so, like I think I just said, well.
What was the question?
What about books? About which books you go?
Oh yeah. There we go.
Okay, I got a question for you. As you write the character Granuel, now does your wife give you advice on, okay, look at it and go, oh no, a woman would never do that, or a woman would never say that, things like that? Or do you just...
Sometimes, a little bit, yeah. A little bit. She reads everything though, you know what I mean? I have her read everything, so that, I guess so, sure. Yes, the answer is yes.
Good answer.
Oh, that was a crappy question, I guess.
No. It's just that, I didn't know if it was a specific thing. It's just because she reads everything, you know what I mean?
No.
So, yes.
Are we looking forward to some more background on Atticus, maybe his experience in his Bailiff Croton, before he became an immortal druid, maybe during a little bit more
Really
history?
old stuff.
Yeah, getting a little bit more origins, like, because we have Howls, we have Leaves, we have Granuels, we don't have too much concrete with Atticus.
Okay. Yeah, Chapel Perilous have you read that one?
Yeah.
So you get a little bit before he was actually the Iron Druid, because that was the origin of the whole silver thing and the idea for the binding and all that good stuff. So this Egyptian one will be before that time as well. But in terms of origin stories, I haven't really thought of doing that. I suppose I could now that we've fully introduced the Arc Druid. But I didn't want to, get into that too early before he was really a character in people's minds. So, I suppose I could do that. That's a great idea. Maybe I'll write that up for sure. Yeah. Pick somebody, Rob. Go for it.
I believe I saw a hand over here.
Yeah.
Me?
Yeah.
Guess mainly because I haven't read yours yet, sorry, but it's gods are in it. Which is your favorite deity you got to write about and like why? So this is for you.
Okay. I love Coyote because he's not really he cares for his people, but he's basically sort of a selfish deity in that the reason I liked him is because he was really a foil to set against Leaf for that particular book. Leaf is also motivated by selfishness, and so but Coyotes is a slightly different flavor of selfishness, and that's kind of, since the book was all about being tricked by somebody selfish, that's kind of what I was doing there with those two particular characters. By the way, Coyote will be back in book 9. But yeah, there's I think he was my favorite, and then I really enjoyed writing Jesus in 2 different forms. That was a lot of fun.
Irish car bombs, man.
Yeah. So, by the way, people keep going to Rule of Bull and say, "Can I have the shot that Jesus had?" And seriously, they do that. They know about it now. They're like, "Oh, yeah, Iron Druid, yeah." But that bottle was, at the time that I wrote it, yes, it was there, but that bottle no longer exists. It's been drunk. And it's been peed away somewhere. It doesn't. That was a very limited thing where they bottled it after how many years it was. I forgot now, 30 years or whatever it was. But they only had a limited number of bottles in the world, and Rula Bula happened to have one, and they were charging $75 a shot. So for a 1 ounce pour too. So that you can now buy that same distiller. They started up again. But it's only 12-year instead of the 29-year stuff. So you can you can find it almost anywhere now. It's called Napoke Castle stuff. But and I haven't tried it yet because it's only 12 years. But try Redbreast 15-year. That's very good. Anyone else?
When you write your characters, do you ever get a case of multiple personalities where you hear different voices in your head? And it sounds crazy, but when you work with she and I aren't crazy because we write together and we'll be walking around and our friends look at us like we're nuts because we're like, seriously, I have a swan in the back of my head going, and we've scared people in Indian restaurants when we discuss death.
Yeah, absolutely. I will spend days in the voice of a certain character because I switch, kind of headspaces to kind of get there, and so yeah, I will be in different moods for days at a time while I'm trying to be that character and think like they do. So.
Yeah, absolutely. When I wrote the book starring Sigurd, it must have really sucked to have a conversation with me. He's not a talker. There was a lot of,
Oh my God, no.
Yeah.
I didn't think about that. That would be really.
Yeah, there was all these questions like, no.
Well, I'm sure my husband's relieved to know I'm not crazy.
Yes.
Crazy
She is totally normal, dude.
In this perspective, I don't know what else you got going.
So I read or listen to y'all's books on commutes. Do you ever find do y'all listen to the audio version, and does it ever influence your character when you hear the voices?
No. Like one time I came home from a trip and found my wife was playing one of my audiobooks, and I felt vaguely violated. Or like I came home and I started to fold laundry and I just heard some on the radio. I was sort of like, this sounds a little bit. Wait a second. And I was like, you tricked me into listening to my crap. How'd you do that? But it's always really weird to hear your own words put in someone else's voice. There's one of my books that has a female character, main character, and they chose a male voice reader. And it was a weird choice to hear a dude talk like a lady. It's a long book, too. Like 6 hours, this dude doing a lady impression. And I was like, you know, you guys could have just went out and gotten a lady. But yeah, I tried. It's a weird experience. I mean, like, it's like seeing your ex-girlfriend out on a date with someone. You're like, that used to be mine.
I really enjoy Luke Daniels' narration.
Yes.